News Talk Radio Newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
The news at this time comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. I am Gianna Jordan. A very good morning to you. First, the lead stories. The Guyana Power and Light says rising fuel prices as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war are denting its coffers. Guyana hopes to eliminate 5 infectious diseases with help from the Pan American Health Organization. Regionally, Trinidad and Tobago says it is watching the supply of wheat on the international market. St. Martin is lifting its mask mandate. And for the international news, we'll bring to you the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service. The details of these and other stories will be coming up right here in just a moment.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now the news in detail. The state-owned Guyana Power and Light Inc., GPL, says the Russia-Ukraine war has triggered a sharp spike in the price of fuel. The company says this has resulted in monthly operational expenses being 4.5 billion Guyana dollars compared to 3 billion Guyana dollars in revenues. The Brent crude oil price on Monday soared to $139 per barrel, the highest in 14 years, while GPL says its landed cost of fuel was $140 per barrel on Monday. The power company painted a gloomy picture of its financials: 3,700 barrels of fuel per day at a cost of 111.5 million Guyana dollars, and described the situation as an extremely challenging and unsustainable position. However, the power company gave no clear indication that the Public Utilities Commission, PUC, would be asked to approve an increase in electricity bills. GPL says this financially challenging position cannot be sustained at current fuel prices. The power company also did not announce an increase in power outages to conserve fuel consumption. However, GPL says that every kilowatt hour of electricity not generated would reduce the company's fuel costs and, by extension, the overall operating cost. Questions were on Monday raised about the procurement of almost $17 million in drugs and medical supplies for the Guyana Forensic Laboratory. At a hearing of the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, an audit director at the Auditor General's office, Audrey Badley, said not all of the items had been supplied in 2017.
The contract was awarded in the sum of $16.9 million, and the full amount was paid to the supplier. Now, in September of 2018, only $6 million of supplies were received. So the supplier failed to provide all the items at that time. So the full amount was paid to the contractor, but he failed to deliver all the items.
The PAC hearing was also told that the remainder of the items had been delivered in 2019. Acting chairman of the PAC, Ganesh Mahipal, said if the discrepancy had been identified, it should have been kept on the radar all the time.
If we were examining these years as for year, as opposed to how we have merged these two here, 2017 we would have found this issue and we would have drill it as we are right now in 2018. And when we come to 2018 report, we would not have seen it repeating itself when in actuality the items were delivered in 2019. So the 18 report should have flagged it as an issue still. Am I correct, Ms. Badley?
Yes, Chairman, you are correct.
The PAC also heard from the Principal Assistant Secretary of Finance that $14.7 million worth of items had been supplied to the Guyana Forensic Laboratory and $2.7 million had been refunded. Private sector businesses across the Caribbean community, CARICOM, are being encouraged to invest in ocean-going transportation. This is against the background of the need for cheaper transportation of agricultural produce and products in the region to help reduce CARICOM's food import bill. President Irfan Ali, who is responsible for agriculture in CARICOM's quasi-cabinet, says businesses are being invited to invest in cargo transportation services.
Very important is the issue of transportation and logistics, and we have decided that we're going to make a call to the private sector through an expression of interest for a finance and operate, manage proposals for the movement of cargo, people, vehicles. And we've also decided that as part of that investment forum, every country will give a list of incentives that they will give towards an investment like this that would bring a solution to the transport and logistics hurdle that we face as a region for intra-regional trade.
President Irfan Ali. The Pan American Health Organization and Guyana are teaming up to eliminate 5 neglected infectious diseases. Overall, there are 20 diseases in 42 groups that the World Health Organization wants to eliminate over the next 10 years. Statistics show that more than 1 billion persons are infected by these diseases. In Guyana, Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony says filaria, chagas, leishmania, leprosy, and soil-transmitted elements that cause anemia are being targeted by this project. He says that overall, Guyana has been doing well in keeping the prevalence of these diseases very low.
So with the big 5, I think, it is not as bad as maybe some of the other regions of the world, because they are affecting relatively small numbers of people, with exceptions of the soil-transmitted elements. But outside of that, I think the numbers are really small. And I therefore believe that we'll be able to resolve a lot of these problems in a faster time. So even this 5-year duration that we have, I think we can do it much faster if we have that concentrated focus.
The health minister is urging participants to, at the same time, tackle other health-related issues such as dengue and snake bites.
Now, outside of these, we still have some other issues. And maybe while it might not be the core neglected infections that we're talking about, since these 5 might not be so challenging, we perhaps need to add some more. And so I want to ask you also to perhaps start thinking about what we can do with dengue, because it's still a challenge for us here in the country. Very often we hear of persons getting infected, and we perhaps need to think seriously to have a more robust program of trying to reduce the burden of dengue in Guyana. So that's something that maybe we should put on our radar.
Health Minister Dr. Frank Anthony. The Health Ministry says the number of COVID-19 patients who are receiving intensive care has dropped to 5. Official figures also show that 7 new cases have been recorded within the past 24 hours. Overall, 14 persons are hospitalized and 206 have been ordered to isolate themselves at home. The death toll so far since the pandemic began in March 2020 is 1,223. President Irfan Ali has said that more COVID-19 measures will be relaxed. Already, the curfew has been discontinued, and he says incoming passengers no longer need to submit COVID location forms to the health desk. And now in regional news. Barbados's Prime Minister Mia Mottley is visiting the West African nation of Ghana. She thanked Ghana for having the courage to go out on its own as a republic, saying it was such actions that could lead more small island developing states to also take the plunge. She also expects ties between African countries and CARICOM member states to become even stronger in the coming years. Ms. Mottley made the comments while delivering the feature address at Ghana's 65th Independence Anniversary celebrations early Sunday morning. With the war raging between Ukraine and Russia, two of the world's largest producers of wheat, Trinidad and Tobago's National Flour Mills, NFM, has said its priority is securing enough of the grain to supply the country and admits it will have to make decisions if the price continues to rise. In an interview with the Guardian media, its CEO Ian Mitchell acknowledges that a shortage of wheat in Europe will trickle down to the rest of the world. He says the NFM's stocks are in good position for the next 2 months as it has quite a bit of storage. He says the company does not have to go back out to the market immediately. He also explained, however, that NFM does not wait until stocks are depleting to replenish. He said, coming closer to the end of March, the company will have a better idea about where the prices will be. He reiterated that the company's priority will be to secure wheat to ensure that if there's an availability issue, the NFM is pretty much covered. And if the situation worsens, then the national flour mills will have to do some evaluations, Mitchell said. According to the CEO, wheat prices have gone up by over $10 a bushel, which included all strains of wheat. He said, while the company does not buy European wheat, all of the wheat produced worldwide supplies the international market. Another factor the company continues to monitor is the cost of freight and transportation, which have already affected global suppliers due to the war. St. Martin will, from next Tuesday, relax the use of masks. SMS News reports that Health and Labour Minister Omar Otley says St. Martin has recorded a 1% infectious rate over the last week. He says this is significantly lower than the World Health Organization's recommended threshold of a 5% infectious rate. The minister stated that this puts St. Martin in the low-risk category, and so the mask mandate has been relaxed from Code Red to Code Green, effective Tuesday, March 15th. The minister also stated that, given the country's current status, he would advise that 3 a.m. business closure can be lifted. This is another step towards normalcy strategy in St. Martin. He says establishments will still reserve the right to request a mask to enter their premises, but there will be no penalties from government inspectors if no mask is worn in such establishments. Antigua and Barbuda's National Office of Disaster Services, NODS, is encouraging participation in the annual tsunami exercise, Carib Wave, on Thursday. The exercise is testing aspects of tsunami readiness throughout the region. This activity is conducted by the Intergovernmental Coordination Group for Tsunami and Other Coastal Hazards Warning System for the Caribbean and adjacent regions associated with UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. The March 10th tsunami exercise is coordinated with the Barbados-based Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, the regional body responsible for disaster management. The threat of tsunamis in the region is real, and there have been significant efforts by disaster personnel to enhance tsunami preparedness in Antigua and Barbuda and the rest of the region. Several areas in Antigua have been declared tsunami ready through a UNESCO program. They are St. John's City and the districts of St. John's City South and St. John's City West. Colombian President Ivan Duque on Monday said any solution for Venezuela's future must come through genuine, transparent presidential elections. A top delegation from the United States government traveled to Caracas since the weekend to talk with Maduro and other Venezuelan officials about the possibility of easing U.S. oil sanctions. The U.S. wanted an exchange of a series of demands, including Maduro's condemnation of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The first high-level bilateral talks between the United States and Venezuela in years caught Venezuela's opposition, led by Juan Guaido, almost off guard as his interim government, recognized by Colombia and the United States, was notified at the last minute. U.S. and Venezuelan officials made scant progress toward a deal in a Saturday meeting at the presidential palace that was full of maximalist demands, according to a source close to the talks. This reflected long-time tensions between the Western Hemisphere's main power and one of its biggest ideological foes. Washington is seeking to separate Russia from one of its key allies while securing alternative oil supplies in case wider sanctions are imposed on Russia's energy sector. If U.S. trading oil sanctions on Venezuela, in effect since 2019, were lifted, the OPEC member nation could potentially increase exports. And now for the international news, here's the latest bulletin coming from the BBC World Service.
BBC News. Hello, this is Jerry Smith. Civilians have begun leaving the besieged Ukrainian city of Sumy after Russia agreed to pause its bombardment. Local media showed a convoy of buses and cars preparing to set off. Ukrainian officials said it would head for the city of Poltava, further away from the Russian border. A ceasefire has been agreed until 9 p.m. local time. James Waterhouse is in Kiev.
For people in Sumy, it is a painstakingly difficult choice. Do they stay put? Do they hope that their supplies will last a bit longer? Or do they risk it? Do they take their families, their bags, above ground, facing the elements, and take a path that is strewn with danger, peace is as ever fragile along that route, to a place that will be alien to them, that isn't home? So yes, it's a continuing effort at humanitarian relief in a humanitarian crisis that is only deepening, but it is seriously delicate and as ever dangerous.
Moscow has said there'll be corridors in other key Ukrainian cities. There's been no confirmation from Kyiv. There's particular concern about people in the city of Mariupol, where there's a blockade and Russian bombardment continues. A spokesperson for the International Committee of the Red Cross, Crystal Wells, says those who are trapped urgently need a way out.
Our team in Mariupol described the situation to me as apocalyptic. There is no food, there is no water, there is no heat, there is no electricity. I mean, to put it really simply, people are going through hell.
The Ukrainian military says the pace of the Russian advance has slowed significantly. It said Russian forces were demoralized and increasingly resorting to looting and violating military rules. Civilian casualties are mounting. Earlier, Ukraine's defense ministry said a senior Russian military commander has died in a battle on the outskirts of Kharkiv. Moscow is yet to comment. But the BBC's defence correspondent Jonathan Beale says the apparent deployment of such a senior officer suggests the Russian invasion may not be going to plan.
These are people, senior officers who shouldn't really be at the front line, and it shows, some of the problems of the Russian advances, the Russian offensive at the moment, that they are putting senior officers in harm's way to try to get that invasion plan back on track and taking losses as a result.
Poland's border agency says 1.2 million refugees from Ukraine have now crossed into Poland, more than half of the overall total. Many are staying with friends or family members living in Poland. 40% are estimated to be moving on to a third country. The Polish Parliament is debating emergency legislation today to compensate Polish families who've agreed to take in some of the arrivals. World news from the BBC. Russia has warned that it may close its main gas pipeline to Germany if the West goes ahead with a ban on Russian oil. The Deputy Prime Minister said a rejection of Russian oil would lead to catastrophic consequences for the global market and cause prices to soar. The US has been discussing a potential ban with its European allies. The European Court of Justice has ruled that Britain, while still a member of the European Parliament, failed to collect appropriate customs duties due on Chinese imports, including textiles and footwear. The European Commission, which brought the case, says the total loss between 2011 and 2017 amounted to almost $3 billion. It said traders evaded customs duties by using false invoices. The US Senate has voted unanimously to pass legislation that would designate lynching as a federal hate crime for the first time in American history. The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act is named after a black teenager whose brutal killing in Mississippi in 1955 sparked the modern civil rights movement in the US. It'll now be sent to President Biden to sign into law. The South Korean Navy has fired warning shots at a North Korean patrol boat that strayed across the de facto maritime border between the two countries. This report from Michael Bristow.
The North Korean vessel was tracking a fishing boat from the north. The patrol vessel returned to its own territory after being warned by South Korea, whose navy seized a fishing boat. On board was a crew of 7. Some were wearing military uniforms. The sailors said their vessel had accidentally drifted into South Korean waters. They said they didn't want to defect. Incidents like this are rare, but comes amid signs that North Korea is again active at its only nuclear test site. All this is a reminder that the world has more than one flashpoint.
Michael Bristow, BBC News.
The news came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now to end the news, here is a recap of the leads. The Guyana Power and Light says rising fuel prices as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war are denting its coffers. Guyana hopes to eliminate 5 infectious diseases with help from the Pan American Health Organization. In regional news, Trinidad and Tobago says it is watching the supply of wheat on the international market. St. Martin is lifting its mask mandate. And that's the news to the moment.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.